I'm Candice Malcolm, and this is the Candice Malcolm Show. We have a great episode for you folks. We have Alexa Lavoie from The Rebel joining us in a few minutes. Before we get to her exclusive reports on immigration and illegal border crossings, I want to cover something that came across my desk yesterday. I thought it was just too important not to cover on the show, and that is that Prime Minister Mark Carney plans to recognize statehood for Palestine, for the Palestinian state. So, in a statement released yesterday, Mark Carney said Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the next United Nations General Assembly in September. We have a clip of him saying that this is what he plans to do. Let's play that clip.
For the reasons I cited earlier, Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
So I'm going to read a little bit from Juno News Report. You could hear Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that there are a whole bunch of conditions attached to recognizing statehood. Let me just say, folks, that Hamas is not going to abide by these things, right? So Canada says, yeah, we'll recognize statehood, but we have a list of things that you have to do in order for us to do that. And yet they're still going to announce it in September. So we have a month for the Palestinians and Hamas to make all of the changes that the international community and that Israel has been trying to get them to make for years upon years. They're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And so what is going to happen is that Canada is going to recognize a state run by terrorists. It is absolutely mind-boggling and just so reckless, so irresponsible. I'm going to read a little bit from Juno News' report from Walid Tamtam, great report over at junonews.com. He writes, Canada will officially recognize the state of Palestine at the UN General Assembly in September, announced Mark Carney on Wednesday. A decision made nearly 2 years after the October 7th, 2023 Hamas terrorist attack marks a major shift in Canada's Middle Eastern policy, aligning with recent moves by France and the UK, ever the follower of that Mark Carney, the globalist weffer, saying that he is going to do the thing that Britain just said that they were going to do. So Britain says they're going to do it, France is going to do that, and then Mark Carney just jumps right on with his European buddies to make the same announcement. I'm going to continue reading from this report. He says, speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Carney said the deteriorating humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the collapse of a credible peace process compelled Canada to act. The level of human suffering in Gaza is intolerable, Carney said. And let me just point out, folks, that the level of humanitarian suffering is because of Hamas. It is because of Hamas and their terrorist attack and their inability to hand over the hostages and their insistence on using Palestinian civilians as human shields. Carney condemned the Israeli government for allowing the situation in Gaza to reach what he calls intolerable state. Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session. The intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much needed reforms. Those reforms, he said, include Mahmoud Abbas's pledge to hold a general election in 2026, to exclude Hamas from any governing role, and to end the payment system for prisoners, and to commit to a demilitarized Palestinian state. Folks, let me just remind you that Mahmoud Abbas was first elected in 2006. Okay, so he is on year 19 of a 4-year term. And he has pledged many times that he would hold democratic elections, and he never has. And the flip side of that is that if he were to announce democratic elections, he would lose. And the reality in Gaza is that Mahmoud Abbas is a moderate compared to the other side, right? And so if there were democratic elections in Palestine, a Hamas or Hamas-like a group would likely get elected, making it even more despotic and completely out of control. The idea that Hamas would have no governing role. Hamas is obviously clearly very embedded in the society. So this idea that we're just going to proactively give them what they've always wanted, which is statehood, recognizing their statehood, without having any guarantees that they're going to go by any of these things that Canada's demanding, it's just naive and irresponsible. The Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre have released a statement saying that they are condemning Carney's recognition of the Palestinian statehood. Let me just read a little bit from that. It says, recognizing a Palestinian state after the October 7th terrorist atrocities sends the wrong message to the world that violence and terror are effective tools for achieving political objectives. The statement read, if the government recognizes a Palestinian state now, it is impossible that Hamas will not play a central role. Surely Canadians cannot support validating Hamas with the status of government. That is exactly right. That is exactly right, folks. The conservatives have it right. It is so foolish for the Carney liberals to believe that anything will change. And let me just say, like, you might be wondering, like, why, like, who's calling for this? Why is this a major important thing in Canada in the middle of summer, just days before we're supposed to sign our own trade agreements, or we're in the middle of negotiating our deadline for doing trade deal with the United States comes tomorrow, right? So why would Canada do this? Well, this just brings me back to something that Thomas Mulcair said last year, October 8th, 2024. Thomas Mulcair, who is a former NDP leader, wrote in a column for CTV that he was talking to Melanie Joly, who was the foreign minister at the time. They were talking about Canada's response to South Africa's claim that Israel was committing genocide and they were taking them to the ICC. And this is what Thomas Mulcair wrote: "When I spoke with Joly about the Liberal reaction to the South African position, she said something that floored me. Thomas, have you seen the demographics in my writing? I know all politics is local, but I was astonished to hear such a candid admission that very local politics were playing such a role in shaping Canada's foreign policy on this highly complex and sensitive issue." It all comes back to the Liberals' immigration plan, to pandering to the most extreme communities, to telling everybody who comes to Canada, you can bring your tribal feuds, you can bring your ancient ways of life to Canada. We'll welcome all that, and not only will welcome it, we'll start pandering to it. So because you have a lot of radical Muslims in your riding, you're going to go ahead and side with them and recognize a terror state. Just a few weeks ago, Mark Carney said at an Eid celebration in Ottawa on June 6th that Muslim values are the same as Canadian values. Let's play that clip.
We can gather in different places of worship, but all of us come together, all of us must come together around the values of Eid. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Pandering, more pandering to more extreme sects in Canadian society. Well, guess what? President Trump noticed, President Trump saw that Canada is now trying to make a deal with Hamas and with the Palestinian states. And this is what Trump wrote on Truth Social. He said, "Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada," he writes. Oh, Canada is right. And folks, just moments ago, as we were recording, President Trump also announced that he will give a 90-day pause on the tariffs to Mexico. No word on what is going to happen with those tariffs coming on Canada. It's supposed to be in effect tomorrow. Now, I want to welcome Alexa Lavoie to the show. Alexa is a Quebec-based journalist with Rebel News, known for investigative on-the-ground reporting that challenges mainstream narratives on Canadian protests and government policies. Alexa, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I'm wondering your thoughts. I mean, you cover a lot of these pro-Palestine rallies, and you cover a lot of the things happening in probably Melanie Joly's riding in Quebec. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this announcement from Mark Carney.
Well, first of all, those protests will not stop. It's clear the people who are protesting in the streets, they are in favor of Hamas. They are calling them the resistance. So for them, I don't think what Mark Carney is offering is enough. I think they want Hamas to stay in power, probably because mainly they call them the resistance. So they agree with what they are doing. And also, the thing is, Mark Carney in his demand is to demilitarize Hamas and Gaza, but also giving the power to the Palestinian Authority and the Fatah. And I don't know if you remember, but the Fatah was killed massively after the election in 2006. And it's why now we are seeing Hamas in power in the Gaza Strip. So I don't know what they are looking for. I don't know if they actually see all the element in what they are asking for, because we are talking about two groups of really violent that they will need to deal with each other, and they never actually agree with anything in the past. So to see them agreeing in less than a month, as you mentioned, I think they are living in a unicorn environment.
Well, it's true, because it's like the demands that they made are pretty much the same demands that Israel has. I mean, obviously add in, hey, return our hostages that you took from us almost 2 years ago. Who knows what kinds of conditions they're living in. And basically, if the Palestinians were willing to do all of that stuff, I think that Israel would also be willing to sign a peace agreement, or at least allow them to have some kind of independence. But they're not willing to do that, and so we have this war, and so it just seems totally misguided. I think it's all about local pandering, and it reminds me of a report that you had in Montreal earlier this week. You were on the ground reporting on the Sean Feucht worship service in Montreal that was protested, and a smoke bomb was thrown into the service in the middle of it. And during your I think it was your footage, or someone from Rebels, you can see the protesters. I think we can put it up on the screen. You can see that there's someone waving a Palestinian flag, right? And so it's like, we have a church service in Montreal, people trying to worship their Christian God. You can see out there, the Antifa was there, but then there was also a Palestinian flag. It's like, why? Like,
Mhm.
who would show up to protest a Christian singer and bring a Palestinian flag, unless it was some kind of sign of intimidation? I mean, it brought me back to that clip we just showed of Mark Carney saying Canadian values are Muslim values. Like, I don't really understand what he means by that. He didn't ever really clarify it or explain. But like, when I see a Palestinian flag, I see it as a sign of intimidation, and like, trying to send some kind of message. What did you interpret when you saw that flag?
Well, first of all, the people who showed up that day, they are professional protesters. I was able to recognize lots of them from previous protests. They are always there when there is a protest for the climate, protest for the decolonial. They are there for all kind of protests. And so this is the typical far left Montrealers who are just trying to find any event to show up and just protest, and they mix all together all the cause, because literally they don't really know what they are protesting. They are showing up in front of a church where people are going to worship. Imagine if that happened in front of a mosque. This situation will be doing headline
Right.
across Canada and across the world for like probably Islamophobia. But because it's a church and the people who are attending are Christian, I didn't see any big headline. The only headline was, oh, a MAGA Christian artist was going to deliver a worship service in a church. But the term MAGA was the term in all CBC article and all mainstream article. And that created that protest that day. That created also the attack that we saw with the smoke bombs inside of the church.
Right.
Did you see any mainstream media relating that the smoke bomb was thrown inside of a church? I didn't see any.
No, of course not. It's not part of their narrative, right? Their narrative is evil Trump Republican in Canada, even though what Sean Feucht was doing had nothing to do with politics, right? He's a worship leader and a rock singer, Christian rock singer. So he's just there to pray and to lead a prayer and to sing. But the CBC inserted this narrative and decided that somehow he was politically dangerous. And yeah, I guess it just, like, the people who were there, maybe they just read the CBC. The CBC has radicalized their own readers. You did some great reporting there, because you have obtained footage of the man who threw those smoke bombs. You can see the man there in the white shirt with the suspenders. He's like a bit of a hipster there. And you can see him walking in. And then in the crowd there's a worship service. There's Sean Feucht on stage. And you can see him in the very, very back there, just lobbing the smoke bombs casually and then turning around and leaving. So Alexa, can you walk us through what happened and what you're trying to do now?
So now we are trying to search for the identity of this man. So it's why we launched findthethug.ca. I have another angle that I was tipped about it. So the man getting out of the church really, quietly, peacefully, and just left in front of the police officers, and afterwards he's gone. But I have another angle that we are going to post today with a better quality video. So if anybody know this man or have any information, please reach out to us.
Well, I read this on the show on Tuesday after this happened, but in Canada, interrupting or disturbing a religious service, religious worship, is addressed under the Criminal Code. It is counter to sections 176, 1, 2, and 3, and section 430 that you cannot actually interrupt a church service in the middle of it. So that should be the big news story across the country, that a thug, some kind of either Antifa or Palestinian or anti-Christian or just a radicalized CBC viewer, decided to throw smoke bombs into a church, into a worship service in Canada. Like, if it were any other religion, if it were in any other part of the world, it would be a huge concern. In Canada, they don't even cover it. It's not like they even shrug their shoulders about it. They just completely pretend that it didn't happen. So great reporting, and we look forward to seeing what you do next. I want to talk about another one of your reports that this is just tremendous. Again, the kind of work that the CBC will never do. So you did an investigative report that exposed illegal border crossings. So a new Rebel News report led by Alexa Lavoie and Lincoln Jane exposed a surge in organized criminal smuggling operations across the Canada-US border near Champlain, New York, and Franklin, Quebec. They used hidden cameras and local tips. Team documented 34 illegal crossings in just 4 nights, many involving Haitians. I believe you found Haitian IDs and other identifying things that you could see with the night cam. So you set up hunting or camping videos to be able to catch these individuals crossing at night. Really just tremendous reporting and journalism that the independent media is doing in Canada, folks, and the legacy media just completely ignoring. I'll admit, when the Trudeau government finally closed Roxham Road, I had visited Roxham Road as a reporter back in, I think, 2018, 2019. And again, I just kind of assumed that when they finally closed it up, the problem was gone, but it clearly isn't. I mean, just a few nights, you caught 34 individuals crossing. So tell us the sort of origin of this report. What led you to go down to the border, and then what were your key findings?
But I've been investigating on the borders since many years, and I knew that by closing Roxham Road and by doing a reform on the Third Safe Country Agreement, that will lead to way worse. I explain. So when they did the reform on the Third Safe Country Agreement, they also included a 2 weeks period for the people who, if they are crossing illegally, they will be turned back if they are not eligible. But after 14 days, they will be able to apply and their refugee claim will be received. So the people now that are paying human trafficker, they are paying, and in the price, often it include to be hidden for 14 days somewhere. So after that, they can get out and apply for their refugee status. The price, it's varying between 2,000 to 5,000 US, depending probably of the demand. But I've been investigating on this, and I found a lot of TikTok video and other social media video showing people crossing illegally as a video for advertising safe crossing. On some of these videos, we saw house and farm, and we found the house and the farm in those videos, and we went to speak with the resident that actually told us that yes, the illegal crossing have increased in their field. They are finding all kind of items, and that is back in 2024 when we went over there. But recently, one of the residents called us and say, now it's just getting out of hand. People are just crossing multiple times a week, big group. Also, they were saying like, we don't feel really safe anymore. Nobody is reporting on the situation. And it's why I'm calling you, because we want to shed light on the current situation. And especially because most of the people are not crossing both sides. They are mainly going to Canada. And they wanted to warn us about the situation.
Well, it's interesting that you say that you've been following it for years, and then there was a TikTok video. So there's a TikTok user that, as you say in your report, by the name of Jeet Ukerhand, who's posted dozens of posts advertising human smuggling, like openly saying, hey guys, we'll take you from Montreal to New York or vice versa. And that he's still posting these as recently as 4 days ago. So it's not like they're trying to hide it. It's happening out in the open. And as you showed, I mean, it seems like it's happening every night. The report shows that the police on both sides seem to be onto it. You showed helicopters, you showed RCMP vehicles circling around. Like they're aware of it. It just seems like they're not able or perhaps not willing to stop the flow. What was your sense being down at the border?
First of all, there is a lack of manpower on the ground, that's for sure. They are using technology, yes, but the thing is you need to stop them when they are doing their criminal act. And also because the sanctions are not enough. Most of the time, the people who are crossing illegally, they will say, I'm claiming refugee status. I'm a refugee. And then the charge will be dropped and they will be driven to the closer legal port of entry. And then if they are allowed, they will be receiving the immigration treatment center. And if not, they would just be turned back into the US.
100%. I mean, anybody who's leaving the United States right now and coming into Canada illegally, I mean, we have a safe third country agreement. So the whole idea behind that is that if you are a true refugee and you're fleeing persecution in your country of origin, you will declare refugee status and ask for asylum in the first country that you land in. And so if someone is coming from the United States, just by very virtue of them coming from the United States, it means that they're not a refugee. It means that they cannot do what they're trying to do. They're obviously illegally in the United States and they're trying to illegally come into Canada to evade that. And on top of that, I mean, Juno News broke this report earlier this month that the feds have spent over $2.6 billion on asylum seeker housing in Canada just since 2017. So more than $2.6 billion, including $1.1 billion on hotels and accommodations, $1.5 billion in transfers to provinces and cities to manage shelter costs amid record high arrivals. So at a time when Canadians can't afford to buy their first home, when housing prices are out of control, when our homeless population is growing, the feds are happily paying billions of dollars to accommodate people who come to our country illegally. And then, of course, there was this other story that broke in the Globe and Mail earlier this week that the border authorities are unable to locate nearly 600 criminals that are due for deportation. So the Canadian system is a mess. It is embarrassingly disorganized and bad. Alexa, I don't know how you just lose 600 people, 600 bad guys in the country set for deportation. Canada doesn't do a lot of deportation. So the fact that they're finally going to deport these people, these are all convicted criminals. And now all of a sudden, CBSA records show that 599 foreign nationals failed to attend their deportation proceedings. It's all based on the honor system. This is a problem, right? It's like, hey, you're here illegally and you've been convicted of crimes, so we're going to deport you. So show up to the airport at this time so we can deport you. And then the people don't show up. And then we just don't know where they go. We don't know where they are. And interestingly, in your report, you spoke to people who say, you know, it used to be that the migrants were coming from Canada into the United States. And now it's kind of shifted backwards where it's more bad guys coming from the US into Canada. So what do you make of all this?
I think we need to act as fast as we can. I think we need to reinforce our border. I think we need to invest more in our RCMP officer. And then why not sending military to our border for a certain period of time? Right now, just at the legal port of entry, we are, for the month of July, we are probably close to 3,000 people showing up to ask for refugee. Then we have all the people crossing illegally. And that doesn't include the people arriving by the airport. We need to see that Canada cannot take more people into our country. We have a housing crisis. Our healthcare system is not functioning. Our economy is not doing well. And also, all those people who are crossing illegally, part of them will also continue to do that human trafficking because a lot of them will not have the money to pay their crossing. So they will be involved themselves into doing the same thing. And I saw some video on TikTok last year. They were searching for driver. Do you know how much they pay for 3 hours or to 4 hours to drive people illegally?
No, tell us.
It's $15,000. This is the price that they pay for the people. This is a lot of money. So of course, there is a lot of bad actors. They don't mind to be illegal. They are doing a really lucrative business. And if they get caught, they are still illegal. So afterwards, they can just say, oh, no, I'm a refugee. And then all charge will be dropped. And finally, they will have gained a lot of money. And then they will have their process for refugee status being looked at by our government. So a lot of bad actors are playing our system, and we are letting them winning on top of that.
It's really unbelievable just how much they'll prey on vulnerable people. And, you know, for liberals and for bleeding heart types that say like, oh, we have to accept these people, it's like, you know, even if you're sympathetic to the families, and you did show a family with small children crossing, and that tug at my heart as well. But the rest of them, it was all kind of young military-aged men, and it's usually a large influx of young men coming in. So much so that Canada's demographics are now split, so that there are much more young men than there are young women in the country. But the idea is that there is a whole network behind them of
we need to be
smugglers
careful.
and traffickers, and those people are actually getting rich off of this process. It's wild.
Because you mentioned the children, but talking with the resident, they say that some women were showing up with babies who didn't know what to do with the baby. So at the end of the day, there is use of children to cross illegally with the goal to be taken into like pity of them because, oh, a mother with a baby. But the residents were telling me that they are not sure that the baby was her. So it was just maybe a random a random child that they grabbed and they tried to pass as it's my child, but I'm trying to come to ask refugee status, but it's not really hers.
I mean, that is so sick and twisted that they would steal a child. I mean, that to me, that's like one of the worst things that you could do. And the fact that they are doing, I mean, add kidnapping on top of that and international smuggling, those people should go to jail, and not in Canada. They should be deported and gone to jail. And hopefully the children get reunited with their actual parents, because it's just so sick and twisted what some of these people will do to take advantage of our generosity. Alexa Lavoie, amazing reporting. Everyone go check out the Rebel News. We're going to add a link in the description here so you can check out her full documentary. Incredible journalism from the Rebel and from independent media. Alexa, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Candice Malcolm. This is Candice Malcolm Show. Thank you, and God bless.